Now we're going to look at assessing primary and secondary tracks. The terms primary and secondary tracks aren't standard terms, but are used to specify or determine the relationship between tracks in Debrief. The primary track is always the track that is the focus of attention, and with calculations involving a secondary track, or tracks, performed relative to the primary. All these calculations are shown in a view called the track tote view. Now, we looked at this in the previous video on analyzing data, but in this tutorial we'll look at setting up primary and secondary tracks and moving tracks through time. If you close the sample DPF file at the end of the last exercise, locate it in the navigator view and double-click on it to open it again. Then click on the Fit to Window button. And we need to view the track tote, so ensure that that's open. If it's not, click on Window, Show View, then Track Tote. And the track tote contains information about selected tracks within the active plot. Though the limit on the number of tracks that can be displayed is determined only by the memory capacity or capability of your PC, the track tote itself will display a minimum of at least 2 columns, one for the active track and one for the attribute column, as you can see here. And also you can have an optional units column, or as is shown here, show calc units column. In our sample DPF file, the left-hand track contains the primary data for Nelson, and the right-hand column contains the secondary track data for Collingwood, and all calculation data is taken from the corresponding tracks. So now we'll use the time controller to change the time. So if your time controller is not visible, open it, and then you can drag the time slider to the right, to the left, and position accordingly. As mentioned before, if you hold down the Shift key, it will snap to the hour points. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the Collingwood track from the track tote. So right click on any of the cells, don't right click on the header, and then click on Remove this track. And that removes the Collingwood track from the track tote, leaving the one remaining Nelson track. So to add a track to the tote, click on Collingwood and then click on the secondary button in the View toolbar. And please note, any data item that has time and location attributes can be placed on the tote, not just tracks. And items such as circles and labels are particularly suited. For example, if I want to place rectangle no-go delta onto the track tote, I can designate that as either primary or make secondary or add as an additional secondary. So I'm going to add this as an additional secondary. And there we go. Then we have no-go delta, and then I can add label as an additional secondary, and as you can see, our track tote is now building up. But I don't really want these at the moment for the purposes of this exercise, so I can remove them accordingly. So now you know about primary, secondary and other tracks, and that's the tutorial on the track tote complete. As with all these tutorials, go back and practice until you're comfortable with all elements that are covered. And the next tutorial also uses the sample.dpf file, so if you plan to continue now, you can proceed with this file open. If you don't, close it, and there's no need to save any changes.